So how would you describe the internal operation of dance happening in you, or your body actually dancing? How would you describe it as an internal operation? Which organs or body parts are engaged?
Well, first of all, I would, so you mean like really, well, I would first name it, like that it's a lot of the work on attention, like how I shift it, where do I place it in the body, what do I notice, and what do I notice also in my imagination and the breath, and which layer gets more active, like in the foreground, and which becomes like the support system or the background, for the movement to happen. I usually, the operation that is usually happening has to do with keeping one center running, like one center in the foreground, and all the other ones either supporting it or being, in a position.
And this center could be any body part?
It can be any layer of the body.
Well,
and
when you say layer,
I mean,
what do you mean?
like bones or the breath. Actually, for me, it could be like a center or this place of contact we have now, or the center of my feet, or the soles of my feet touching the floor. Really interesting. So it really it shifts. Actually, it constantly shifts, and there's something that comes to the foreground, and then there's something that that temporarily moves to the background. And I feel it's always in change, but it can be as big as the skin and as small as the nose or the tongue. Well, I actually don't work so much with the brain. I think it comes, I work with the brain as a, I'm trying to, I'm working with the brain more as an organ that can give meaning or can help me to find certain understandings.
Simultaneously as you dance?
Yeah, totally. Like I feel it kind of, and also it allows me to notice, for example, what I've done and what is not yet done. And
so, will you locate the awareness in the organ of the brain?
I said no, of course not, because there's much more happening on the arena, like the pre-named thing. But for sure, like for example, when I worked on the solo, like the solo. The solo work, like there is a structure, and the structure it emerged from the body, and I had no clue what I do when I started working on the solo. I had no concept or nothing. I just went into the studio, and I started developing it like the dream work. But then I used my brain, or I don't know if it's brain or the knowledge. I actually don't know what the brain does. But it's because maybe of the dream work that we are taught not to, because the brain is such a complex organism, entity, that it's really hard, like you don't know if you, for example, we don't imagine things in the brain. We leave the brain being as it is. We can imagine having wings or imagine, having bones of steel, but we don't imagine brain being that way or this way, just because it's because you can't predict how it's gonna act. So I don't know, I guess maybe because of that I don't really work, I don't move from the brain in that way. It's both inside. It's always inside, and that, in the sense of that, I learned this from Rosalind Crisp, and I really find it crucial that you really stay in the body, So I always stay with part of my attention in the body, in some like kind of a layer. And in this sense, it moves me from within, but it also moves me from, I don't know if it's outside, actually. It's hard to say, because I don't know if the structure exists outside of me, you know. In a way, it always comes from me, but it moves me from the, like they are both connected for me. Like the outside is, you know, like I started by bringing a tarot card in. So in a way, I started from something outside of me and the situation that the world was in, and I was really sad about everything what's happening around me and being kind of helpless, about feeling helpless. And then, but then it's kind of like they mirror each other, you know, and it feels like they move simultaneously, like it's same. And in the same way, I am moved by something because there is an image and it makes my body move in a particular way. But I also make choices. So if I notice that I am faster, or I don't, you know, I had this emotion, or I did it differently today, or this feels like this, I can adjust everything what I'm doing on the basis of what I've noticed and the patterns I observed. So I would say it's not either or. Actually, I think it's both. And by holding both together, I have a sensation that one can really avoid this dichotomy of thinking that there's either brain, you know, and concept, or the body, and the body has to like be free and, I don't know, go crazy, and then only something true will emerge. And oops. I have a feeling that both are useful and they don't need to be exclusive. And they have limits, you know, because if it's only the body, like if it's only following like somatic practices, I think often the trap is that it is not formed, and with concept, that it's formed and limited by the concept. So I think if you can use both, it's amazing.
Exactly, I think it has something to do with listening.
Mm-hmm.
As if you will plug in yourself into a stream of movement that already exists,
Mm-hmm.
but you are so sensitive that at some point you are able to listen it and you follow it.
Totally. No, I totally agree with
And
that.
how do you reach these states? How do you warm up? How do you prepare your body to? Is it something that you always manage to arrive there, or is it more like privileged state of dancing?
Well, not always. Not always, but I, for example, like really hear this work with Rosalind and learning about being relaxed is really helping, because I can really hear much more. I can really listen more clearly, you know, if I am, yes? Okay, wait, just give me a second, I will pull you, but I have to understand how it functions. Well, it's a lot of information happening. Well, yeah, there is a... With my solo, actually, it happens quite often that I get there. It's quite interesting. There is something about there's something about resting. Something about resting. Something about being at ease for me, and actually really this kind of like peripheral vision, or being kind of, in a way, it's funny, it's both being focused but at the same time letting things come.
Yeah, but how do you arrive into that state?
Well, I take time.
Mm-hmm.
I think the warm-up is really important.
Mm-hmm.
I really take time to tune in to my body, to listen, to see what emerges today in terms of imagination, and actually in terms of weight, and in terms of like really being like really being quiet, you know, actually being quiet really helps with that. I'm trying to understand if something is noticing the image, you know, so in a way there is a mind, I think, involved. I mean, I don't know I'm not that precise about where it comes. I know it comes from the whole body and from me noticing where I am, like in a way. Sometimes I find myself in a place and the image is around me.
You imagine a space.
Well, I don't imagine, and this is the thing, because I don't think I imagine it, you know, it just kind of, in a way, imagines me. It kind of happens, I don't guide myself with an image, I don't choose it. It kind of chooses me in a way. I can then maybe find a way how I work with it and how I transform it, but I don't design it in a way, I think. It emerges from the body, and it emerges from, some body parts are more, easier for me to imagine with, I guess, because hands and face, for example, they really are, you know, certain curves or positions, they just kind of trigger things. Thinking about the layers and, you know, the kaleidoscopic attention and noticing how, like, part of my attention, it's kind of holding both in the field, like holding the inner body and then the body and what's happening around it. What's happening around it? Where are you in space? You know, what is there an image that you have to what you're doing? Is there, I don't know, like kind of you. So really having attention on layers and then allowing these layers to shift, to really move. I thought that the presence is really embodied in a way. I thought that really presence is coming from the body, from noticing what is, you know, the sensation of your skin, the little bit of sweat, and that this is, that I'm not delivering them something, that the role or the piece is not something fixed, but it's in movement, it's changing. It's in transition. It's emerging constantly, even though it was fixed. Like if it was worked on or precise, it's still emerging. Wait, because I have to talk. You need to give me a bit of time. This is overflooding me with information.